Hi there! Hanami 2.2 beta went out and the team is squeezing everything to wrap up the last remaining tasks. Therefore, I have decided to challenge the new release to show how easy it is right now to start new web prototype. So let's make a vlog in a few minutes. Before we start, a little disclaimer though. Hanami 2.2 generates empty views, and for Hanami Mastery videos I use Bulma CSS framework. So to save your eyes from looking at how I write HTML boilerplate, I have extended the default generators using Hanami CLI Bulma gem that give basic Bulma support for newly created Hanami views. So for the record, I will first install the Hanami gem and then Hanami CLI Bulma to overwrite executable. Feel free to add a few minutes to the whole run to the HTML burden. Over time, the generator's experience will be improved in the plain Hanami CLI too. So now I can create the Hanami app named Hanami Mastery, and that will include the Bulma integration for free. This created all the necessary files for the new Hanami app with SQLite 3 integration, assets and view in place, and installed the missing gems together with node packages. Now I can go to the app folder and you can see all files generated. Let me switch to the editor for better look. A few things to notice. Bulma generators added a few tweaks to the default generated files. In the app CSS folder, you will see the import statement for the Bulma CSS. Then opening the application layout file shows you that I have automatically created some HTML burden to save your precious time. Now let me jump to the DB implementation. Our goal here is to have a CRUD-like article listing with preview, creation and deletion in place. So I will start from creating a few articles records. To do that, first I need a migration file, which I can create by running migration generator. Inside, I want to create the articles table with just a few fields. It needs to contain ID as primary key, and to make things simple, I will leave it as integer, which is the default. Then I need the title and the content for the preview. And let me yet add the status field with default value set to 0. I'm not sure if I will use it in this showcase, but it does not hurt to have it here. Having that, I can run the migration and play with the DB in my console. This db migrate command generated the structural SQL file that can be used to quickly set up DB without running all the migrations. It's useful for commands like hanamidb prepare. Having DB set up, let me generate articles relation file. This is a table representation in our Ruby application. And for that bare bone usage, this is the minimum you need to work with data in Hanami apps. I have talked about this in the ROM setup from scratch episode, so feel free to check it out. Here, however, I want to make use of the auto-struct feature and leverage repositories for convenience. So I will quickly generate the article repository and the article struct. After that, I will open the console and load the repo from the app container to play with. You can see here that I have created the repo instance already. It's configured to work with the database, and I can access the articles relation through it, which returns no records at the given moment. While I could already use relation to create objects, I want to use repository.create directly for convenience. However, if I will run it now, article creation will fail with no method error. This happens because Hanami encourages developers to be explicit in what they need, and the framework provides you with minimal setup, allowing you to enable exactly those features you want. This way, in the main application repository, I will enable create, update, and delete commands on the repository directly, so I don't need to go through the relations to do it. Now article creation will work as you might expect, and we will leverage that in our app in a moment. For now, I will create a second article yet, and then we'll move to the next part of the episode, which is the article listing. I will start with action generation, as it immediately generates views together for me, saving additional precious minutes. This adds a new root to the roots.rb file and generates all necessary files needed to handle this endpoint. I will now visit the article's index template, where you might see that generator already added a few HTML syntax for me. It uses the items list and loops through them, showing the table rows with some hard-coded details. If I run the server and visit the page, I will get the undefined method items, which is kind of expected. Let me add it in the view object. Here I need to expose the items method to the template so template can access it, and inside I will fetch all articles from the repository. Then in the base repository, I will add the all method. It could use root directly, but I prefer to define the default scope I want to have in my repositories, which will remain private. One of the reasons for that I will share with you in the upcoming episode. Now, our articles listing, while hard-coded, already shows 2 items on the list. Then if I visit the template and replace the hard-coded fields to fetch data from the item object, I will get the legit articles listing for my blog. Good! Next will be the articles preview. I want the article title to be a link that, after being clicked, redirects you to the article details page. For that, I'm going to replace the string with the link to helper, passing article path as a second argument, and add some Bulma tags to make it pretty. Then I will generate a new action named articles show. This behaves exactly as you might expect. It adds a root, the roots file, creates the action file to handle the request, and a view file together with template to show the response. The issue you might face here is that when you try to refresh the page again, you will get the error pointing to the fact that the root named article cannot be found. I can solve it by naming my newly created article, passing in the as attribute. Having that fixed, let me open the articles show view file and add the article fetching logic here. Similar to the index view, I need the repository and expose the object I want to work with in the template. But this time, I will need the ID parameter from the request, so this is what I use in the block. Then inside, I'm just going to find the article by ID. I need to yet add the find method in the base repository that will accept the ID and return the single record from the table. I have implemented it in a way to raise an error in case of not finding the object, but you can remove the exclamation mark to return nil instead. Finally, in the template, I will replace the hard-coded strings with the article attributes, and this should be all needed to check the preview of my article. Oops, sorry, the content should be also called on the item object, not directly in the view. Now this will work. Amazing! Next, let me add a few words about error handling. Currently, when we pass in at the end of the URL and a string, it will be interpreted by the router as ID, and our DB will be called checking the ID's presence. Then server returns DB error to the user. I would love to not even hit the DB when the ID is not an integer or does not match other restrictions like being lower than 1. For that, I can open the action file and halt the request processing in case of params are invalid. I will return 4.2 status for now, and above I will make sure that the ID parameter needs to be coercible to string by using built-in action validation rules that Hanami provides out of the box. Now, when you will try to fetch the article using the parameter that is not an integer, we will never even try to render the view, not even mentioning to hit the DB. I can change here to 404 to return a different error page. If you are interested in detailed error handling for Hanami applications, I have already 2 episodes about this topic, starting from flash message rendering, which I recommend for you to check out. Articles previewing works fine. Now, before I add the form actions, let me update the top navigation links to quickly switch between articles listing and the details page. With this, let me go to the last 2 features, creating and deleting the article. I will generate 2 actions now, new and create, using 2 separate generator calls. You may see that create action generator did not create any view or template file, which is expected. Now let me check the roots and add the aliases for each of them. Then in the top navigation of my application layout, I will add a button to visit a new article page. So now I can access it from any place in my app. When I click on it, I will get a very simple and hard-coded form example that I need to tweak now a bit to make it working. First of all, I want to show the new article title at the very top of the page instead of the action class name. Then I want the form to wrap its fields into the article object and use the create article post request when submitted. Finally, I need to add a second field to the form, which will allow me to type in the content of my article when being created. This will be a different text area type of field with a different class name and placeholder. I will also update the icon here, but that's irrelevant. I don't have the font awesome integrated here, but if you are keen how to do it, I already have a tutorial for this. Check episode 51 for all the details of how to configure font awesome in your apps. Now in the form, I want yet to update the cancel button to redirect me to the articles list. Now I have a fully functional article form, and the only thing left now is to provide the handler for it to the corresponding action. In the action file, I will start from validating the object. I want the form to have an article root key and inside be a title attribute coercible to string and needs to be present, as well as the content attribute with the same rules applied. With this, I can hold the request processing in case request is invalid and either render the error page or render the new form again, passing the error messages down to the view. I have multiple view-related videos recorded already, so if you want, you can easily access them by clicking the view tag under any of the Hanami Mastery episode titles. With that, you can quickly learn how to create advanced forms that dynamically show error messages and success notifications. For now, I will halt the response, and if it's successful, create the article with the article attributes. Finally, when all that is successful, redirect to the articles listing. I will need yet include the article repository dependency, and now I can try this out. The server returns an error with undefined method params for the create action. This happens because I try to call params directly, as you might see often in Rails controllers. In Hanami apps, params are called on request object, while methods like render or redirect are called on the response object. This is worth noticing if you call from Rails ecosystem. This kind of error can be very familiar to you. Now I have a fully functional article creation in my blog application. Great! Let me add the last feature for today then, and remove some of our items from the list. To remove articles, I will generate a new action, but this time with the --skip view flag, which prevents Hanami from creating both view and template files. As you can see, only a single action file had been added to the folder, and the routes file had been updated by adding a new delete route. Let me update the action file now to handle the request. I will again need the repository dependency to be injected, so let me add this right now, but the content of the file will be pretty similar to the show action. validating ID, then halting in case of incorrect params. So I will copy it over to save some time. Now at the end, I will delete the row based on the past ID and redirect to the articles listing as we did before. That's all here. And what have been left is generating links to these endpoints on the articles listing page. Here in the index template, I have two buttons for edit and destroy actions. Because destroy route accepts HTTP method delete, the usual link will not work. You may either write a JS script to make it functional or use the form helper to achieve the same goal. I will use the second approach, which does not require any JavaScript and will be sufficient for my current needs. I want to replace the link to helper with the forms submit button and wrap this around with the form for helper. This will send the delete HTTP request under the articles/ID route to remove my article. Now in the routes file, I will add the alias to my route, and that should be all. I have now a Hanami application that can list, preview, create and delete articles with full DB integration, and that is using Bulma CSS framework to look great. You may see that the last feature, updating the article, I have left unfinished, and that's on purpose. Feel free to treat it as homework. I am amazed by the progress that Hanami 2.2 shows, and how well Rome classes are integrated in this version. There are no issues whatsoever, and everything I would need to build advanced web applications is already in place. The plain view generators might require some love in the near future, but the quality of live features are not as important, as when more advanced apps are being written, generators are becoming less useful, and the AI auto-completion tools like Copilot take the lead. Now we have finally the complete, full-featured framework, and I cannot wait to play with it and write some serious Hanami apps for real. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, and if you want to see more content in this fashion, hit the notification button, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, newsletter, and follow me on Twitter. Now I want to especially thank my recent sponsors, Mervik Goch, Adrian Marin, and Lucian Ginda, for supporting this project. I really appreciate it. By helping me with a few dollars per month creating this content, you are helping the open source developers and maintainers to create amazing software for you. And remember, if you want to support my work even without money involved, the best you can do is to like, share, and comment on my episodes and discussion threads. Help me add value to the open source community. If you know other great gems you wish me to talk about, leave a comment with #suggestion and I will gladly cover them in the future episodes. As usual, here you can find 2 of my previous videos. Thank you all for supporting my channel. You are awesome and have a nice rest of your day.